The hot stove is piping.
It's going. Here we go. It finally
Wow.
it took a little while, but it's, we got a big name off the board.
Yeah, we do. And let's just dive into it right now, because late last night, depending on where you were and what part of the country, how late you're up.
Yeah.
While you were watching something else, I was watching my University of Houston Cougars lose in overtime to the Alabama Crimson Tide. University of Houston, you need another offensive scorer besides L.J. Cryer, but that's neither here nor there. This is what Blake Snell put on his Instagram, Snellzilla4. I saw this because I follow him on IG, and I said, oh, well, this is fun. He's putting a little Photoshop of him in different uniforms of potential suitors. But Anthony, his next post or the news that followed was, I'm signing with the Los Angeles Dodgers.
I mean, rich get richer, right? That's,
no doubt.
Wow.
It is a 5-year, $182 million deal. That is the report. However, Anthony, there are some caveats. One, $60 million in deferrals. Two, a reported $52 million signing bonus, tax-free because he lives in the state of Washington,
no state
which
tax
I did
on that
not
bad
know
boy.
did not have a state tax. So shout out to Washington. But we were talking before the show. The Dodgers keep doing things with their contracts where you go, man, I didn't know they could do that. Like, oh, they could offer a guy a planet and a unicorn? I didn't know that they could do that. The Dodgers continue to amaze and are throwing the gauntlet down for the rest of the league.
I mean, and why not? When you have such a successful offseason as they did last year, where they signed away a lot of money, and then they come back the next year, and by all projections and what we've heard or what I've heard is that they exceeded expectations as far as just the amount of revenue that those two major signings in obviously Yamamoto and Ohtani, what that brought in for them. And now you fast forward to this year, it's like, okay, now we have a little bit more money than we thought we would have. Here's a luxury signing. This is what we get to do with it. And when I think of the Dodgers and what they're doing with these contracts, I mentioned this on the call I mentioned earlier. It reminds me of what they do in football with contracts, that we didn't know you could get this creative with the way that you handle what is essentially the CBA tax. It's not, a hard cap, obviously, but it's meant to work as one, not necessarily a hard cap, soft. It's meant to work as a soft cap almost. And they're finding ways to do deals and figure out ways to kind of push money elsewhere so that when it comes to that AAV and the way the CBA recognizes these contracts, it doesn't hit as hard when it comes to their luxury tax number. And so they're able to add a little bit more talent than you would expect.
Yeah, we're just beginning to dive in on this big story here as the Los Angeles Dodgers, the World Series champions, have made a
hitter, has the potential to go out there and go 8 or 9 if he's right that day. If he's not walking guys, he can keep his pitch count down. This really, to me, solidifies not just, we knew the Dodgers were going to be great for many years to come, but the fact that you're able to go out and get a guy like this, bring him into your rotation, it really speaks to where Major League Baseball is within the industry. Is this going to be another super team type of an era? Not just the Dodgers, but are other teams going to try to emulate this? Will they be able to emulate this? It's going to be really fun to watch over this offseason. This is going to be a fascinating offseason.
Well, this tweet here from our good friend Sarah Langs, multi-Cy Young Award winners to join a reigning World Series champion the following offseason. Blake Snell, of course, this offseason, and then Roger Clemens joining the Yankees after he was traded from the Toronto Blue Jays in 1999. The other thing to consider is Roki Sasaki is a very real possibility for the Dodgers. So let's just say, I think we have the board. Maybe we've shown it earlier. If we could put it up again. You've got Tyler Glasnow. You've got Yamamoto. You've got Blake Snell. Yeah, here we go. You've got Tony Gonsolin, Dustin May, Bobby Miller.
Don't forget about Shohei. Yeah.
Shohei Ohtani, the guy that had 50-50, he's now joining the rotation.
Have you seen Roki Sasaki's stuff?
I have.
To think about the stuff that they already have within that. I mean, Dustin May throws 1 billion miles an hour with more movement than I've ever seen. We saw what Yamamoto can do. We know what Tyler Glasnow can do. Ohtani is finished second in the Cy Young once or twice, right? These guys all have incredible stuff.
And they're going to have a 6-man
you
rotation.
You could add
at least
100%.
That's happening.
It makes a ton of sense.
And
Yamamoto and Ohtani have traditionally been on to be the guy on the team. I don't know if that's Roki Sasaki. I don't, obviously I don't know him personally. It'll be interesting to see where he makes his decision because he can't get, it's not going to be the most money, right? He's max $7-some million is the most any team has in that international pool. We'll see. All that said, I mean, that just means that anyone could sign him.
Well, this is the era for the rich getting richer, and it translates over to baseball. Off and running with one of our favorites, JP Morosi, who joins us here. JP, Blake Snell, breaking the news himself on Instagram late yesterday, at least in the Eastern time zone. He goes to the Dodgers, 5-year, $182 million deal, reported $52 million signing bonus, a lot to unpack. Which way do you want to go first?
Sure. Well, Robert, Anthony, first of all, happy Thanksgiving. And yes, we do love it when the player himself puts it out there. It's a pretty good source when it comes right from the player.
Got to trust it.
All the ambiguity is gone. Blake Snell, a Dodger. One fun note as we get started, the Dodgers now have half of the Rays starting rotation from the 2020 World Series with Snell and Glasnow just 4 years ago. How about that? And of course, Andrew Friedman was the Rays GM when Snell was drafted by them back in 2011. So some good biographical notes there. But the most important thing financially, guys, is this. Snell now has the second highest AAV of any pitching signed 112 days earlier in this offseason cycle than he did a year ago. More than 3 months ahead of time based on last year's schedule, and for good reason. He had that bumpy start to the year, and when you look at what his ERA was in April and May, he was not fully healthy yet. And if you were to tell us at that point in time that he'd be signing for $182 million, we didn't necessarily see that coming, but it's because of what Blake did in the second half of the year. His final 14 starts, an ERA of 1.23. Dominance from a two-time winner of the Cy Young Award. And the other thing Robert and Anthony did set out to be is he actually lowered his walk rate. A lot of the conversation last year coming off of the Cy Young season with the Padres was the walk rate and the concerns that teams had about strike throwing. Well, he actually lowered the walk rate.
Yeah.
He bumped up the strikeout rate. So the peripheral numbers are very strong. And again, you see there what he did the final 14 starts. The interesting secondary note on this for the Dodgers that I think we should not lose track of is it probably, not certainly, but probably means that Walker Buehler, Jack Flaherty won't be back in 2025 based on the market dynamics.
Yeah.
And Jack Flaherty was one of the most consistent pitchers for the Dodgers in the playoffs. They don't win the World Series without Jack Flaherty. And Walker Buehler threw the last pitch. So those are two really important guys in the Dodger rotation who will likely not be back in 2025. And listen, it's a trade that most of us would say, yeah, it's a good trade in terms of talent and potential. You're basically trading Flaherty and Buehler out for Snell and Ohtani in. But we also have to realize Ohtani, especially given the injury in the World Series, there's a very real chance he's not ready to go on the mound on opening day.
That makes sense.
It's important to put that context in mind that let's not let the moment escape without recognizing the importance of Buehler and Flaherty to the Dodgers World Series championship.
JP, real quick, what does this mean for Burns, for Fried, for Flaherty? Now that we have two kind of data points, Blake Snell and then Yusei Kikuchi, who also signed his deal a few days, or agreed to his deal a few days ago.
Right, very healthy numbers. I think this contract is good news for Burns, Fried, Flaherty, Buehler, and many others. I think Mark Feinsand's piece this morning at MLB.com did a great job of explaining just where that market sits and the importance now for teams like the Red Sox and the Orioles and to some extent the Yankees to really get to work on filling some needs. I would also say the San Diego Padres, who gave the Dodgers their biggest challenge, they're one starting pitcher away as well. There's a lot of starters still out there. And by the way, I certainly want to point out Clayton Kershaw's name on the left-hand side of the screen, there's still a pretty healthy expectation he's going to be back with the Los Angeles Dodgers in 2025. Shane Bieber's name is really interesting. Maybe he's someone that signs a little bit later and returns during the season. But I think that, of course, the Juan Soto sweepstakes looms above all of this. And if the Red Sox are able to interrupt what is seen as a New York storyline between the Mets and the Yankees, but we are probably going to see some bidding wars between those two arch rivals in the American League East, and the Yankees and Red Sox for pitching, and the Orioles guys. They were not good enough to get past the Kansas City Royals with Corbin Burns.
Correct.
They have got some work to do this offseason.
Well, Anthony, and I want to bring you in here because I'm glad he mentions the Orioles.
Yeah.
And the men or the people that are there many of them came from Houston. They were part of the building of that.
Yeah.
But Houston didn't become Houston until they got Justin Verlander.
Yeah.
Via trade. They need a big ticket front line starter. Grayson Rodriguez has the potential to do that, but he's young and he's injured.
And Zach Eflin has proven that he can be a nice piece,
Yes.
but is he that frontline guy? Not necessarily. They get that, and then you start to lengthen out that starting rotation. Obviously, they have some guys who are injured, that they look to get back at some point, whether it's Kyle Bradish or Tyler Wells. I think when you look at the names that they have, though, they have a decent rotation in place, but it's going to be, can you get that guy at the top of the rotation? Can you get that big arm that can really take you over the top? They had the chance this past year with Burns. Things fell apart, though, towards the end of the year with guys not being healthy, Rodriguez not throwing the way that they wanted him to, and things just didn't work out. That bullpen right now, it could be a big strength. They have a lot of big names back there, and so they could attack things in a different way if they don't get that frontline starter and really even continue to beef up that bullpen and see if that helps them long term.
Hey, JP, we're up against it, so give us a couple of quick hitters. One on Garrett Crochet, latest on him, and then Nathan Eovaldi.
Yes, so Garrett Crochet, trade-wise, pay really close attention to the Boston Red Sox. They're the team that they have the prospects, especially if they don't get a Burns or if they don't get a Fried, and we'll see how things play out with Juan Soto. You think about the Red Sox and how disappointing this past season was. They need to make a massive move here. And if it's not going to be in free agency, if they don't get Soto, then pay really close attention on a possible Garrett Crochet trade. They've got the prospects to get it done. And remember, the White Sox, if they make this move, I was told again this week, there's been some reports about Willie Abreu possibly being part of this conversation. I was told the White Sox are so far away from what they perceive to be their competitive window that they would prefer to get prospects who have not even debuted yet in the major leagues, whether it's an Anthony or Meyer or a Campbell. Now, finally, on Eovaldi, the Atlanta Braves, I'm told, are potentially in there along with the Baltimore Orioles. So with Nate Eovaldi, he has that postseason resume, guys, of being someone that you trust in a big spot in October.
Definitely.
And so again, you just talked about the Orioles. I love the Eovaldi fit to Baltimore as someone with that postseason track record to give them a bit more belief once they arrive to October.